Hello, hello, Greg. Welcome to the Mentally About Us podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm so happy that you're here on a Saturday taking your time to come onto my podcast and talk about the nervous system because I feel like that's a pretty hot topic right now in like the mental health world, and I love having guests on that is educated on that. We can go in depth about it because I love to keep learning about it because my nervous system is all messed up. But before we get into just like in every Mentally About Us episode, I like to talk more about my guests, go deep into their past, what you went through and how you came to be today. So I know that growing up you did watch your parents divorce, and you've mentioned to me when reaching out to me that you were reading the room, and I totally get that. I was a reading the room kind of child too. So let's talk a little bit about your childhood, about your experience with your parents' divorce, and please like explain to my guests about like reading the room if they don't know what that means.
Sure. I feel like I need a sofa here so I can lay down and you can be my therapist, No, but growing up was a pretty, yes, I would think a pretty typical childhood from the outside. I grew up in a very small subdivision that was surrounded by cornfields in rural Illinois, which now it's all built up. There's mostly neighborhoods around there now. So, growing up in the 20 aughts, it was no social media, no, we got dial up very late, I think maybe early 2000s. So no internet, just spent a lot of time going over to friends' houses, playing video games, just focusing on my studies, watching TV where I could, and everything seemed fine. Although once I hit about 8th grade, freshman year in high school, I noticed that there were some strange things kind of going on between my parents, just a bit more distant from each other, not really talking to each other the way that they used to. And I started to get kind of anxious and a bit worried about all that because, I assumed things were fine most of my life, and then all of a sudden they just weren't really.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was around sophomore year of high school that I learned that they were not really doing very well officially, though, as you were mentioning, reading the room, I already kind of had an idea that something was wrong or off. And by reading the room, I mean tending to be the type of person who is more aware of other people's emotions, their behavioral patterns, and just being very sensitive to that. So when something is off, I'm going to pick up on it very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
When you factor in kids just being kids are very sensitive to changes in their routine, changes in what they think is supposed to happen. So I think both of those factors combined helped me to pick up something's really wrong here. And then about sophomore year was when I learned officially they weren't doing all that well and they were going to go through a divorce. And so that was pretty rough on me at that time. And I thankfully had a therapist I saw who was absolutely amazing. And she helped me through, one of the darker, if not the darkest period of my life. And the way that she did it was just so helpful, and it was almost magical to be able to validate what I was going through and help me process all that in a way that others in my life weren't really able to do. And so going through that experience, coupled with a high school psychology course the following year, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And it's kind of very common in mental health that a lot of people tend to get into it because they themselves had somebody help them and they want to pay it forward. And so I happened to fall into that category myself, and I've been doing this work ever since.
Yeah, and I was one of those people in high school taking a psychology class as well. Except I was more taking it of like both of figuring out what I want to do career-wise and also feeling like wanting to like understand myself. So I want to ask, because you mentioned that as children, we are more sensitive to like our surroundings and such, so you're like picking up on things. As adults, some people still pick up on things, but some people don't. So what do you think is like the reason that some adults are kind of still as sensitive like they were when they were children versus like other adults who are not?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that could probably be its own episode. But
Good to know.
I subscribe to one of my theoretical orientations is Dr. Marsha Linehan, who's the founder of DBT, Dialectical Behavior Therapy. And
Mm-hmm.
she talks a lot about the intersection of biology and environment. I mean, most theories do,
Mm-hmm.
but there's just a little twist on hers that I like a bit more. Excuse me, and that's that there are some people who are just genetically predisposed, born to be a bit more sensitive to emotions, to changes than others. And I think we all kind of know that person. If we aren't that person, we know somebody who's just really sensitive with change, who is kind of already picking up on we might be upset when we ourselves don't even know. We're just kind of going about our day, not really paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the genetic component to it mixed with the environmental component. So I think about a person who grew up in a household where it was very high anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So mom and dad, if both were present, just really highly anxious people. And when we're kids, I mean, we can't do things that adults can do. So we're at the mercy of the adults around us. And if mom and dad are upset, nervous, freaking out, well, that's not going to put a kid at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes kids will learn, hey, if I can just kind of tweak my behavior a little bit, sort of fit into certain boxes. Another way to say this, walking on eggshells. I can maybe somehow kind of help manage my parents' emotions for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is going to calm them down. This is going to keep the environment safe, and I can kind of live my life a bit more easily. When we're adults, those patterns don't just disappear if we don't recognize we have them, if we haven't made any conscious effort to change them, if we've
Mm-hmm.
even wanted to change them.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, those are going to continue into every sphere of our life with coworkers, with friends, romantic partners. It's all going to just continue to happen unless people are aware of these patterns and do something about them if they want to.
So what you said is quite interesting to me because actually a couple of days ago I had a guest on that struggles severely with people pleasing and feeling like she's like worth something, and she kind of had like a low self-esteem in that. And I asked her if like in her childhood if she was like bullied, because typically people who are bullied, they become people pleasers, they feel like they have to do anything to make people like them and such. But she said not really that, but when in her household, she felt like she had to take care of everybody. And I asked her if she was the oldest because people always say like the oldest are parentified and like they're the ones who are taking care of everybody. She said no, she was the youngest.
Mm.
So I thought that was really interesting. It's the first time I ever heard that. So do you think in her situation that she, I guess, when you were talking about genetics and maybe she's like the way she is now, like people pleasing, is not that she was like bullied at home, but maybe she grew up with a mother or father that was, I guess, as you were saying, like very anxious or there's chaos, and she, I guess, not realizing these patterns and how it followed her to her adulthood.
Yeah. Well, my disclaimer is pure speculation because I don't know her.
Of course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if I am to speculate, it could be that her parents were highly anxious.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that maybe she just perceived them to be that way, because that's something that can happen too. You know, we think people are acting a certain way or think a certain way about us. Even though it's not true, we might still proceed as if it is true.
Yeah,
So to be the youngest and feel like she has to take care of everybody, you know, it could also be that maybe it was her way of getting attention.
interesting.
Because as the youngest, you know, what's the meme, right? The joke is the oldest gets way too much attention because they're
Really?
always the first. Yeah, they're always the first. So of course the parents are going to be harder on them. They're going to be, you know, telling them you got to pull your weight around here, and sort of as
Mm.
it goes down the list of siblings, the youngest, you know, is always, oh, you're so sweet, you're so wonderful, and anything for you. I mean, that's the joke that I see usually online and,
I
and
was
in,
so
you
the
know, popular
opposite.
media. Oh, well, then you're the exception, I guess. But so if, you know, there was all this attention being placed on other siblings for whatever reason, maybe it was her way of just getting attention. But again, this is all
Yeah,
speculation.
no, of course. I just like thought that was because I was, I guess, since it didn't happen too long ago, and when you were talking about that, I'm like, wait, that's really interesting learning this. And then when I was talking to her, like, I guess, I mean, it makes sense why I have this podcast, and I'm not like a therapist, obviously, even though I guess I feel like one because you felt like you needed a couch.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, I never became a therapist because I just felt like I have, like at the time, I had like so much of my own problems where I feel like I wasn't really in like the headspace or a place to be able to help other people with their problems. Because, like I said, that was originally what I was like, my path was going to be. And this was before like how social media is today and podcasting and all of that. So this is kind of like my way for like using my psychology degree. But yeah, I'm kind of getting a little off track. Sometimes I kind of do that. Sorry.
No, no. For the record, as an aside, I'm glad that you had that awareness within yourself because unfortunately, and it always, crushes my soul a little bit when I get these messages from potential clients. Some people get into mental health for all the wrong reasons, and they get into it because they, in some weird way, want to fix themselves by fixing other people. And so they're just bad therapists. So not to say you would be a bad therapist. I imagine
Oh
you'd
no,
be a great
I get what you're
therapist.
saying.
But that idea of not just jumping into it and actually pausing before, taking people's health care into one's hands, I think it's great that you're able to recognize that.
Yeah, yeah, and you're totally right. And I've had so many different therapists throughout my life, and like some are like super super good and holds the space for me. I mean, you know what I mean? And then some like guess actually let me just kind of s- go away from that like subject because I'm gonna go on a whole like tangent about my experience in therapy. But my current therapist is awesome, so that's
Wonderful.
good. Yeah. So let's talk about nervous system. Well, we already talked about the nervous system. What am I saying? But let's talk about how can people tell if their nervous system is dysregulated? Like
Yeah.
some like signs, because I feel like I didn't know about nervous system regulation until like maybe like less than 2 years ago, and I'm sure a lot of people are in that position. So like, I guess how can they tell if that's what they're experiencing right now?
Sure. And I don't know how much of this was talked about before we started recording or not, so I'll kind of give my brief overview of the nervous system, right? So there's really two main pieces, and they're really in opposition to one another as the day goes along. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight system. So this is going to be the one that gets us amped up, ready to go, and again, aptly named, either fight or run away. The other system is the parasympathetic nervous system, and this is our rest and digest system. This is going to be the one to help calm us down, relax, and just we can feel safe when this system is activated. So naturally, both of them can't be active at the same time. They're always fighting each other. So how do you know which one tends to be active at any given time? Well, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, is fairly obvious to most people, though we're not necessarily always paying attention to the signs as they unfold. Because when it's active, we tend to be on what I call autopilot, which is just we're moving habitually, we're not really thinking about what's occurring. So when fight or flight's active, we might start to feel some muscle tension. We might start to have an increased heart rate. Were you rubbing your jaw?
Yeah, yeah, I was like, ooh, tension.
Right.
Okay, I guess I know what I'm in right now.
Well, not necessarily, but that is a sign that you could be in fight or flight.
Right, yeah.
Your temperature might go up because your heart rate is going up. You might start to have shorter, shallower breathing. You might start to fidget, kind of just really have a tough time sitting still. All of these things are signs that your body is getting amped up and ready to go. Now,
Interesting.
fight or flight is not a bad thing. We want it. If God forbid, for some reason, a big old grizzly bear walks into your room right there, I would want you to be in fight or flight. I'd be concerned about you if you didn't go into fight or flight in that moment.
It's like, come and get me.
Yeah. Oh, look at that lovely
Oh, how
animal. Oh,
pretty.
the teeth look so sharp, and then you're gone, and then this episode's over because your lunch, right? So fight or flight is useful. The problem is we don't want it to activate when we're not really in an unsafe situation. We find ourselves attributing or ascribing to certain situations that might just be uncomfortable. We start to say that those are unsafe. And so now all of a sudden I'm moving through my day, going through maybe fairly typical things or maybe a little stressful, just a little bit stressful situations. But then I'm sort of viewing them as unsafe. Now, by unsafe, I don't necessarily just mean physically unsafe. I mean maybe emotionally unsafe, socially unsafe, mentally unsafe. And if I start to attribute that to, again, a daily thing, well, I'm going to be in fight or flight a bit more often. So an example of what this might look like, maybe I have a weekly meeting with my boss. And I had one meeting where they really just kind of let me have it. My job performance, I really didn't do a good job, and they let me know about it. And in my mind, I might, again, maybe even unconsciously, view this as an unsafe meeting. Because when I go in there, I'm going to get chewed out. I'm going to potentially get fired. This is just a really highly stressful situation. Never mind the fact that you've been working at the company the last 5 years, and this was really the only bad mark on your whole record. It could very easily just be that one instance where now all of a sudden I'm viewing my boss as unsafe and those meetings as unsafe. So it can be very easy to take a situation and put it in the unsafe category, which is then going to potentially make our days a lot more stressful because we're going to be in fight or flight.
I think that was really like the best way to explain it. And I totally like get what you're saying, how like one bad experience is like now your body remembers that and it's like, okay, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna go in, it's probably gonna happen again. You just like think it's gonna happen, even though like the likelihood of it happening is like really rare. A lot of people, when they think about fight or flight, I mean, I just see this on social media. They kind of make a joke being like, oh, fight or flight, obviously, when you were saying like running away from grizzly bears and such. But now, like modern day, it's like, oh my gosh, an email, running away from the.
Kinda, yeah.
It's so crazy. Like, I can imagine our like ancestors being like, what? What is it? What do you mean? This email is gonna like pop out of the computer? This email's gonna pop out of the screen thing and come and murder you or something like that?
Yeah.
They'd be like, what is
I
wrong
chased the
with you?
mammoths across the plains only for you to be scared of an email.
My God, that is so true. Okay, so let's say people who are listening to this are like, wow, I probably am in fight or flight. I feel like I'm in fight or flight all the time when I'm driving. Like, do you ever feel like that? Are we supposed to always be in fight or flight when we're driving?
No.
No.
Maybe you just, depending on where you live, have some bad drivers.
Florida.
Okay, see, I'm in Mississippi, and I can attest, coming from Illinois for most of my life, some of the worst drivers I've ever met in my life. So, yeah, I'm pretty on edge a bit more often on the roads.
Yeah, I'm like in Orlando in Florida, so
Okay, so you probably get lots of bad drivers, especially out-of-towners.
all the time, always dodging cars and people always like it's yeah. Anyway, go on.
No, so if we're in fight or flight as our default, that's going to cause a lot of stress and anxiety in our lives. And not just the emotional stress, it's going to cause the physical stress too. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, shallow breathing is part of being in fight or flight, so you're not going to be getting as much oxygen on a regular basis. And one of the funniest things that I tend to see when I start working with people on changing their breathing, when they start to do the breathing properly, the deeper breathing properly, they get lightheaded because they're not used to having so much oxygen. But when they actually start to have the proper amount of oxygen, they start to feel a bit better in the day-to-day. So if you're on the road, I sort of went on a tangent there, but if you're on the road in Orlando and someone's cutting you off and you have to slam on your brakes, or as happened to me once, you're a few car lengths behind a semi and a tire explodes and starts bouncing its way towards your car. It's very natural and actually desirable to be in fight or flight for that because there is an actual threat that's in front of you. If you find yourself getting in that same state as you're sitting at a stoplight with nothing happening around you, then that might be a problem because that's going to make your driving, well, your performance is going to suffer because of where your anxiety's at.
I wonder if that is, do you think that's a reason why some people may go slower?
It's probably.
I
I
mean, of
think
course, it
so.
could be multiple reasons. But I kind of think like, oh, someone's like stuck in fight or flight. They don't even know, and they're just like going slower because they think someone's gonna come after them like a big tiger or a bear.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I put those people into three categories. One is I'm in trouble with the law and I don't want another ticket or to get arrested. I have very little self awareness about anyone around me and just taking my time and going la di da, the typical
Oh my
Sunday
goodness.
driver. Or someone who's pretty highly anxious and are
Yeah.
unsure of themselves.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So as you mentioning that, especially the high anxious part, and I like how you mentioned like the three categories because it could be any of those three categories. Like we can't assume what the situation is, right? Because I know some people they get extremely frustrated with things like that, like this person's going so slow, like what a jerk, and then they get all like riled up and everything. But in my head, I'm like, you don't really know what they're going through, and they could be like the anxious person that is struggling. I always like to unless a person is a threat to me, like about to hit my car, I like to try to be like as patient for two reasons. One, to just for my own mental health, because I feel like if I'm making a choice to get angry or something like that, that's wasted energy and there's no point of that. And then two, like I try my best to be as understanding, even though I'm sure this person has no idea that I'm like being like, oh, screw this person unless I beep at them. But I also try my best to not beep at people. Like I'm the kind of person where let's say someone's had like a green light and I always wait so long because I don't want to I'm not one of those people that like it's green for like a half a second and then they just beep as soon as it turns green. Like I can't do that. Like I can't. Anyway, I'm like going on like a whole thing about driving in cars and but I feel like it is a good topic and I feel like it's something that a lot of people can relate to since we all
Sure.
drive.
And I think it's a perfect example of how the nervous system can be hijacked, go into fight or flight very quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
all the different ways people think about driving. For example, about kind of waiting to honk your horn because you don't want to maybe freak somebody else out,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's one way of looking at it, but then you go to say, I'll stereotype here, New York, and they're just going to slam on their horn, the instant it turns to green. And
Yeah.
if you still have your brake lights on, they're going to be, on you about it. So
Yeah.
we all have different experiences in our lives that are going to calibrate and influence our nervous systems to fire or not fire in certain situations. Doesn't make one situation better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what we do with it. And what you were saying, I think, is really insightful that it's not that we have to necessarily avoid our anger, right? If someone's cutting us off or being slow, because being angry is a perfectly natural human emotion. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, a lot of work that I've done in the past is getting people to just acknowledge that they're angry
Mm-hmm.
about whatever it is and then sort of the underlying emotion, because usually anger is a secondary emotion, there's something underneath it.
Mm.
And so it's okay to be angry. It's just what we do with it. And if I get angry and then I start slamming on my horn or I start riding somebody's bumper, that's just going to continue to spin up my nervous system and the
Yeah.
emotion. Versus if I get angry, take a few deep breaths, maybe turn up the music a little bit, whatever I need to do to sort of regulate that anger,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to help me to live a more effective life, not just in that moment, but
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, that moment's going to carry into the rest of my day.
Yeah, I like when you were saying how like turning down the music and just kind of like just taking a moment because I do that. So if I get like super pissed off and I'm like all like riled up, I'm like, because obviously if the music's louder, it just makes me just want to explode because you're like more overstimulated. But yeah, when I was saying about like the whole picking and choosing is I could I also do feel like yeah, you're right. It's like it's normal to feel the anger. I feel like it's kind of like making the choice of how much you want to affect you and get it and have it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and letting it affect your day. And then also just like learning like about yourself because I know if I get mad, I have a hard time coming down from it. Like I'm like the kind of person where I'll be like, if I get let my emotions get a hold of me, I'm like it can take me hours to get there. So I know like, is it worth getting all the way up there for someone who let's say not even cut me off or just going slow. Like I said, I really only get super, super angry is if a person actually almost hit me. You know what I mean? Because sometimes,
Hmm.
like, let's say someone cuts me off, but like it wasn't so close that like I was able to like catch it in time. That's more of like an annoyance. Like, oh wow. Like, but also I try to like understand where I'm sure this person was like nervous they're gonna like miss the exits. And so they weren't like such a bad driver to the point of like literally me like getting hit, but like it's kind of like in the middle, like they're still being like inconsiderate to the other drivers, but not to the point where it's like they kind of get what I'm saying when it comes to like, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
But let me see. So I think what you're getting at is almost hitting someone is sort of falling into this category of being inconsiderate, not paying attention to others. And so that's what upsets you versus if someone's being slow, it's less egregious. Like they might
So
be inconsiderate, but not as much.
actually, I like what you're saying here. It's like it's like different reasons of being upset. So, like the times where I get like riled up and upset is if someone almost hits me. So I get mad at them for almost putting me in danger and hitting my car, right? But I make the choice where I don't let that same type of level of anger for being like if somebody cuts somebody else off or being considerate, because some people can get upset about that, like, oh wow, that person's such a jerk, just being so inconsiderate to everybody. You kind of see like two different things of like getting upset about,
Hmm.
like two completely different things. So I guess more just for the because everyone's different. So like I get upset when people mistreat others, and I mean, I feel like it should be like a common thing where like obviously it's not cool for people to mistreat others, but like I notice like outside of driving that I get like really like so triggered and so upset and wound up that if I see somebody getting like people are being mean to others or whatever. And I think that just comes from my childhood of me being bullied and knowing, I guess, how that feels. I feel like I kind of get what I'm saying, but it's getting like really, really deep layered here and going like a little bit of off track of the nervous system. So I kind of want to like do get back to that. But let's talk about mindfulness. Cause I know you talk a lot about that and you have a whole podcast about it. So when you reached out to me, so you described mindfulness as pattern recognition under pressure. So can you explain that? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very simple concept. It's an age-old concept. This is not new information, but I do think it is packaged differently these days, and it helps sort of get the message across in a more modern way to a lot of people. And I suspect most in your audience are probably open to the idea of mindfulness, but if they happen to not be, I'm going to try to convince them that mindfulness isn't just some woo-woo, fun buzzword that people say to get the algorithm to help them,
Mm-hmm.
but that it's actually a very useful tool to help us live more effective lives. So I'm going to save you and your audience thousands of dollars on mindfulness seminars right here. And this is what it is. It's paying attention on purpose to the present moment non-judgmentally. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
say that again. Is paying attention on purpose to the present moment non-judgmentally. And by non-judgmentally, I mean focusing on the facts of the situation as they are, not as I want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people might be wondering, well, why is this so important to just pay attention to the moment? Well, because life is lived in the now, and a lot of times people find themselves dwelling on the past or getting lost in it, or they might find themselves doing the opposite, getting lost in the future and worrying about what's to come. But the fact of the matter is that we can't control those things. Either one's already happened or one hasn't happened yet. So what do we have? We have the power of now, the gift of now. And if I focus on those other things too much, then I'm not going to be able to live the life that I want to live. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to suggest that we should never think about our past or learn from it, or we should never plan for the future, because of course we need both of those things. I'd be concerned about anyone for very different reasons if they never thought about the past and they never planned for the future.
Yeah.
What I am saying, though, is that the brain likes to focus on those things. Staying in one space, in one moment, can be challenging for the
Mm-hmm.
brain to do because it's a very active organ. And it's a good thing. We want it to be active. We just want to make sure we are taking it off that autopilot more often than we probably already do.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an example, I'm curious, Justine, what the fabric of your shirt feels like on your skin.
No, I'm feeling it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what's it feel like on your skin?
Because now my brain is like focused on what is it feeling. Like, what do you mean? Like, what does it feel? Like,
Yeah, is it tight? Is it loose? Is it soft? Is
I
it
would say
scratchy?
soft here, maybe like a little tighter here because the way that because it's grabbing onto my arm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like tight, like it's fine. But now my brain is like so focused on like, like how does this really feel on me, right? You know?
Yeah, and I bet you a few things. One, you probably didn't pay any attention to your shirt until I brought attention to it. And two, when I did bring attention to it, I bet you weren't thinking about anything else in that moment except for, well, yeah, how does my shirt actually feel on my skin right now? And so what you were successfully able to do is get off autopilot, even if it's just for a few moments. People start there, right? I consider mindfulness part of a mental gym, right? Routine. And just as we don't go to the gym and bench 300 pounds the first time we go, we have to work our way up. And the same is true with mindfulness. We have to build our capacity. So it might start with just recognizing how the shirt feels on my skin. It might be, I'm going to spend some time this morning brushing my teeth. Hopefully everyone brushed their teeth this morning.
I did.
Great, fantastic. So did I. But when we typically brush our teeth, I know I'm guilty of this too, are we feeling the weight of the toothbrush? Are we feeling the bristles on our teeth and our gums? Are we tasting the toothpaste flavor? Or is it just something that we're kind of doing and maybe I'm listening to something or, laying out clothes or whatever I'm doing while I'm brushing my teeth? And it's usually the latter. So what would it be like for us to just focus solely on the actual experience of brushing our teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there may be unpleasant parts about it. Maybe, I got some issue with a cavity or something, and yeah, that kind of hurts when I brush there. Or maybe I hate the taste of my toothpaste. That's okay. We're just experiencing the moment as it is without any kind of judgment. Now, once I've been able to do that, maybe I broaden that out to my meals and just kind of really enjoy the meal that I'm with. Sort of like if we go out to an expensive steakhouse and you're spending, $100 on a steak, you're going to scarf it down like you did the scrambled eggs you had this morning, right?
I didn't have eggs this morning. I need to go
Oh.
grocery shopping. I actually wanted eggs today, and I'm like, dang, I don't have eggs.
Well, regardless, my point is that, no, that wouldn't happen, right? Because we're spending so much more money on it. No, we're going to savor this.
I do that. I do that with like the drinks too. They're like $20 now.
Yep.
Yeah, I do that.
Even if it's...
But I'm so sorry. I do that, right? But know there's some people who would like scarf it down.
Right.
Wait, so what's the difference here?
Well,
Are they an autopilot?
You're being more mindful of the situation, right? That this is a special occasion and this is a much more expensive steak, and so I'm going to make sure that I'm enjoying this, cutting it slowly, small bites, so I can savor it as long as possible. Or in the case of the drink, even if you have less, as they tend to do, right? The more expensive the drink, the less fluid they actually put in the cup. But, you're still going to enjoy that drink because of the price. Now, imagine if we were able to do this for other areas of our lives, not just brushing our teeth and food, but also recognizing how I'm breathing throughout the day, recognizing how I'm sitting as I'm speaking with somebody. Am I closed off with my arms crossed, or am I sitting in a way that says, no, I'm actually open to what you're saying? Maybe I'm able to check in with my emotions. I'm recognizing I started at a 2 and I'm ratcheting up to a 6. I might need to do some quick internal interventions to help regulate. Or maybe I just ratcheted up to a 9 out of 10, which, I'm seeing red at that point if the emotion's anger. So I need to do something even more radical to try and bring that 8 to 10 sort of crisis range down to something that's a bit more manageable. All of this can happen, but we can't do any of it if we're not being mindful of the fact that we need to. So the more that we practice mindfulness, the more skilled we can be at living our lives in the ways that we actually want to live them.
So, question, what do you have to say for people who have like a hard time focusing. Like people who have ADHD or people who could dissociate or like sometimes like if you were saying, oh, Justine, your shirt or this or that, and I'm like, wait, what? Or like moments where it's just like, huh? You know what I mean? Like would you say that people who are kind of having moments where they're like, huh, or this, that they're kind of like stuck in autopilot? But then again, I feel like if people are like, huh, what'd you say? That's kind of different than like, I guess if you're sitting down trying to get something done, you can't focus. So I guess like, what is your like? Are those people struggling? I guess with mindfulness, they're kind of like their brain is like stuck in like fight or flight, or kind of get what I'm saying?
I think
Those
so. And
examples.
I don't know if I would say that their brains are stuck in fight or flight. Dissociation makes me think about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, in that case, if we're talking PTSD, then yeah, it would be more stuck in fight or flight. It could also mean some kind of psychotic disorder if I'm dissociating. So that might not be fight or flight. That might be something else. But even if someone has some additional challenges, say ADHD, and it's much harder to focus at times, it doesn't mean that mindfulness can't be implemented to help them through their daily lives. So
Mm-hmm.
in particular, one of my favorite interventions for people with ADHD is to set multiple alarms on the phone, particularly once every 30 to 60 minutes, somewhere in there. And that gives me an opportunity to check in with myself about whether or not I'm staying on task. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe when I do see the alarm, I'm going to check in, oh, wait, I'm not actually on task. No
Mm-hmm.
need to bring the hammer down on ourselves. Oh, God, I'm such an idiot. I'm awful. What's wrong with me? Just recognizing, okay, I'm off task. Let me try to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, maybe they need medication to help them out, and that's fine. But the point is that regardless of the challenges people might face, mindfulness can be used with any of those challenges to make them, well, not so challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like personally struggle so much with focus. Like honestly, like when I do these interviews, which is it's good for me with the mindfulness because I have like it helps me with focus because I have to be focused and listening to my guests and comprehending everything. So, but it is kind of like with the way my brain is, it's always trying to take me out of it, but then I catch it and it's just like, Justine, what are you doing? Like, you need to pay attention because if I don't pay attention, you're going to say something important. I'll be like, huh?
But even
I
what you're
would be a
saying,
bad host if I did that.
even what you're saying though, that shows the judgment, right?
Oh,
Man,
you're so
I need
right.
to focus. What's wrong with me? I'm going to be a bad host. All of that is really taking you out of the moment because now you're in your head telling yourself
Yeah.
what a POS you are, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to use harsh letters, but I'll use harsh letters. And that's not true, yet that's what we tend to do. We tend to be pretty critical about ourselves. So instead of, God, I'm so awful, hold on, I've sort of gone off. Let me just nudge myself back. That's it. No need to tell ourselves that we're terrible people. And that's going to help us work through those situations where maybe in the past we felt anxiety about them because, oh God, I'm an idiot. I'm unfocused. Oh God, no, I didn't pay attention again. Oh God, what's wrong with me? That it's not really helpful for the mental health.
You know, it is probably because I got yelled at a lot.
Mm,
That could be it. Like in
maybe.
school, I did not like up until eighth grade, like I did so bad at school. Like I got like D's, C's. And you know, like back then they weren't as ADHD wasn't as spoken about and they tested me for it and they're like, no, she's fine. She's just not working hard enough or, things like that. So maybe that's why I'm so hard on myself because I'm like, oh, if I don't focus, then it's like I'm bad or I'm gonna get like yelled at or people are gonna get annoyed by me and then I get frustrated because it's like so hard to control. And everything you said, like you're so right. And I'm glad you said that because I didn't even realize I was judging until you were saying that I was. I'm like, you're so right. And I'm trying to work on that because I feel like it is something where it's like a bad habit where I judge myself. Like it takes time to work on that, of course. Like I also I'm an actor as well. So when I started training about a year ago, and I was always so hard on myself on everything, and then I realized I'm just like I'm learning. And one thing I'm trying to work on is like, learning a script and everything. And something you really need when you're an actor is focus. Because if your brain for a second goes the other way, you're like not in the scene anymore. So you're like
Yes.
in and out, in and out. And it's like that's it makes it like I get into my head and then the scene just kind of just I'm not gonna say looks like crap because then I'm judging myself again. But I don't know if I'm if you can answer this question. This is kind of I guess more of a personal question for me is it's something that I'm trying to work on. Like, do you have like any advice on that? For an actor that struggles to stay in the scene because the mind just keeps going somewhere else, like mid scene.
Yeah. Well, my experience with theater is limited. I enjoy watching it, but that's the extent of my knowledge on acting. But I would say that two things can be true at once here. And this is the thing that I don't know if I was getting a flavor from you or not, but I suspect some in the audience might be thinking this, that it's true when we're unfocused, when we're on autopilot, things might not go as well. And the scenes that you're talking about, yeah, they might not be as good because you're unfocused. It's also true that we can bring it back without needing to be our own worst critic. So one way to sort of help with focus, I think, is again, doing these mindfulness exercises to kind of get through the day and really increase our capacity for focus. I would also say that if you have some time during the day or the week for activities where you can be as unfocused as you want. Because if you're spending, depending on what your schedule is, your rehearsal schedule, if you're spending, I suspect, multiple days a week, hours a day, trying to be in character, trying to stay focused, trying to make sure you get all your lines right, that's a lot of mental energy. Mm-hmm. And so what are you doing outside of that to just kind of let your brain wander and be on autopilot in a healthy way? Maybe that's watching your favorite TV show, maybe it's going for a walk or, whatever the case may be, but just giving yourself a chance to not be so focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
can
true.
Also be useful.
Would you say, I guess, like doom scrolling?
I would not say doom scrolling, no.
Oh, really? But then why can't I watch TV? I guess what's the difference?
Well, it depends what you're watching, right? And it depends what you're scrolling. When you say doom scrolling, I'm thinking of, let me look at all the bad news in the world.
No, doom scrolling is just if you're just, like, they say doom scrolling as, like, not that we're watching bad things, it's just that we keep watching things. We keep scrolling because it's, like, it's never ending, on, like, TikTok and Instagram. So it's, like, since there's no ending to be like, okay, it's done, put your phone away, it's just, like, you're doomed. You're stuck. You just keep going. Like, that's why it's called doom scrolling.
I see. Maybe the millennial in me is just like, well, I thought it was all the bad things that
No. I'm like, screw that.
So
my phone. I try my best to stay away from that as much as possible. I try to no algorithm. That's I don't like it. Don't engage with. Oh my god. Yeah. It's horrible.
And it's not to say don't be informed. It just means that there's
There's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of just stuff where it's like people just talking crap about celebrities or things like that. Like, that stuff doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess what I mean is we don't want to marinate in it, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm scrolling endlessly on TikTok or Instagram
cat videos
or whatever. Cat videos, yes, but also the algorithm can throw random things in there too, right? I mean, it's not just going to be cat videos for the end of time because they want you to stay, maybe get another interest so that they can feed you more stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do something that's maybe a little bit more mindless, and I know this is probably going to sound like a contradiction, but maybe doing something a little bit more, picking something a little bit more consciously that can be mindless. Mm-hmm. So again, whatever your favorite show is that might make you laugh, watching those episodes, or reading a book, maybe you don't need to pay attention to as much, like an audio book, you can listen to it, maybe do something else. But something that you know for sure is going to give you an opportunity to decompress, maybe relax some of those focus parts of your brain a little bit more.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. One thing I love doing, I don't know if this is, I guess this is, it helps me a lot with stress, and I know it could technically be a form of meditation, is I've been really into coloring lately. When I got my iPad, I downloaded one of those coloring apps, and it really helps me reset. Like, for example, if I'm filming an audition, I do film and TV, by the way. I'm not theater. So when I do auditions and such, I wish I can just do one take and call it a day. But that doesn't happen. So if I forget my lines, or it's just why did I sound like that, or this and that, I get into my own head. I'm just frustrated with it. I should keep those videos where I'm just I go from doing the scene, I'm in character, and I'm Like I go from like the character and I'm just like it's like a switch where I just get so frustrated. But then when you get like frustrated with yourself, then it's just like the next take is gonna look like shit because then you're
Hmm.
in your head. So actually, well, it's just gonna sound really funny. When I was in acting class, my acting coach would say, "Yeah, obviously, if you're stressed out, you're gonna always be in your head, and the scene's gonna be really difficult for you to do." So when that was happening to me, I was actually I was playing a neurologist in the scene. So like I would stumble over words or like I would be like, oh wait, what was like I would just get so frustrated and I'm like, oh great. I need to like, reset, like kind of like reset here. So I was like this, I was like, I gotta let go. And I'm like, I look so like a crazy person. And I have it in between takes. I'm just like, let go. You gotta breathe in. I'm like literally just like
You sound like
actually
a
wait, I
hippie,
do have the
man.
video. I do have this video. I should like send this video to you because it's like because I actually did compile it into a montage because when it was like one long take, right? And you just kind of see me being like, okay, let's try again. Like it's just like to back to back to and so I noticed that I just like cut out all of like the actual audition and just put it all together. I gotta send you that. You will laugh so hard. Like,
I could always use a good laugh.
oh my
But I
God,
mean,
it's so
even that I think is really indicative of how we are our own worst critics. We know how we feel all the time because we're with us 24/7.
mm-hmm.
And we know if there's something that we did or didn't do that we could maybe do a little bit better
Mm-hmm.
or do differently. So for you, yeah, I mean, you are able to watch these videos and see where you screwed up, but to someone else, they might look at that and go, wow, that's really great. And so this is where that mindfulness piece comes in of recognizing that maybe I'm a high achiever. Maybe I'm someone who tends to be overly critical of myself. Oh, I'm doing it again. No need to be overly critical of how overly critical I am of myself in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just going to make it worse. But okay, it's happening again. Let me just kind of nudge myself back to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even as we've been talking today, I mean, there were times where I'm like, I can't quite find the right word, and I could say to myself, God, what an idiot. You're on this show, you need to make sure you have all your words, and what are people thinking of you? You say you have a PhD, you can't even find the right word to say. Like, if I do all that, then I mean, I'm really going to collapse. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of, okay, well, I can't find it. Give me a moment. I'll either find it or I won't, and find a different way to say it. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be so hard on ourselves, which is hard to
Yeah.
do in this day and age of social media, as you say, because everyone is always comparing to everyone else.
Yeah. I always just think back anytime I like mess up or anything like that, I'm just like, I'm human. I want to hear something super crazy is that I do a lot of auditions for commercials as well. Like a lot. Like I think like they're like probably 30 at that point. And the one that I booked is the one that I kept in all of my like mess ups.
See what I mean?
Like
See
like
what I
if I
mean?
was like stuttering or just like 'cause it was like a long slate where they were like wanting me to answer questions because they look for like personality traits and such when I answer them. And so when there was a moment where I'm like, "Oh, wait, what's the word?" or something like I had like a moment like that. I was like, "Justine, just keep it in there." And that's the one I booked, which is
I love it.
so it's so which is great. I mean, they always say to you, commercials, they just want to see you as a person. They don't really it's not really much of acting, more of like they want to see if they want to work with you for like 10 hours a day. And they weren't lying. I was like all like a mess and they were like, "Okay, yeah, she seems chill." Anyway, since for time purposes, let's talk about your podcast. It's called Meditations. And then also I see let's talk about autopilot interrupt protocol. So let's first get into your podcast. Like, what can people expect from your podcast?
Sure. So the full title is Meditations by Gregory T. Obert. And I say that because there's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and there are other podcasts just called Meditations. So I tried to stand out with putting my full name in there, not to
Right.
make it sound like I'm a narcissist or anything. But so this is actually, believe it or not, is coming up on 10 years later
Really?
this year. So I initially launched it as guided meditations every other week. Fell off for a little bit because I was getting my doctorate, but I picked it back up again. And with the opening of my new therapy practice, I decided to try and add some more value to the show. And so in the off weeks, which are now not off weeks, they started out as a Therapy 101 series. where I would talk a lot about different types of disorders or topics related to therapy that people may be curious about. And then I ran out of ideas. So I decided to start having people on for guests, and people have been willing to share their stories. I've had so many people actually come on that I've been having some trouble recording the meditations because I'm recording all the interviews. But I do try to fit the meditations in where I can. And it's all free. It's, meant to help people just kind of zen out for, 10, 15 minutes. These aren't things that you have to do for, an hour. It's meant for people of any experience level to, if you've never done it before, if you're a seasoned meditator, you can just go on, find one of the meditations, listen to it, and just relax.
Mm-hmm.
I've been enjoying it for, well, like I said, for about 10 years now. So I hope to kind of continue that in the future. The autopilot interrupt protocol that you mentioned is a free PDF that I have on my website. And it's meant for people to be able to practice mindfulness skills during their day. There's a variety of micro drills on there that people can do, in the span of 3 minutes, to really check in with themselves, practice their mindfulness, and then choose a different outcome than they normally would if they were on autopilot. And so I encourage people, you're worth 3 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
So go check it out, download it, see if it's for you. If it turns out that's all you need to feel better, fantastic. Go live your life, do your thing. It's out that, wow, there's a lot here that maybe I need some extra help with. That's where therapy might come into play. And that's something that I offer at my practice. Which I'm part of an interstate compact, so I can see people. I think they're up to 43 states now, including Florida.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that actually.
Yeah, I think it's up to 43 plus some territories, like DC.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you are in one of the holdout states, I'm sorry, but if you are in the majority of the states as part of this compact, and you're looking for therapy, I am taking new clients right now. I'd be happy to work with you if there's something that I can help you with.
Mm-hmm. My analytics are so interesting. Right now, the state that's like popping off right now is Virginia. I don't
Interesting.
know. A lot of times the consistency is typically California, Florida, New York could be popping sometimes. One time, it's like, obviously it's like always like by 30 days. But yeah, what was like a country that was Vietnam for some reason? I'm like, where am I getting all these it's so interesting to me though. I'm like, okay, I want to know how did they find my podcast? I mean, honestly, this podcast is on every platform you can think of, and then there's SEO and people's names. People would I notice some people that I would interview. I can tell that people are searching their names because people who offer certain things, like Jessie Torres, for example, she's someone that has been searched a lot. Anyway, so I always like to end the episode with this one question that I ask all of my guests. So talking about let's say your healing journey, even though I know we didn't really talk about a healing journey with you today, but as I feel as humans, we're always healing from any trauma from our past. And you mentioned, talking about the divorce and growing up and such. So if that journey had a theme song, what would it be?
That's an interesting question. I would say it's one of my favorite songs. It's by Anne Berlin, Anberlin. It's called The Unwinding Cable Car. And it's a lovely reminder about how even when we feel like we're less than, the truth is that we're not actually less than. Mm-hmm. And remembering that we're more than whatever the challenges or hardships we're facing in the current moment is just very inspiring to me at the time, and it still continues to be.
Nice. The reason I like to ask this question is that I create a Spotify playlist where I add all of these songs, so it's curated by my guest.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I always do it while we're talking because I don't want to forget. So can you remind me of the name?
The Unwinding Cable Car by Anne Berlin.
Okay, let me see if
that's it.
I feel like I've heard it. It already sounds familiar to me. Okay, let me go ahead and add that before I forget. Add to playlist. It's called the Podcast After Party.
Check that out. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.